Kayla Malecc is unironically a hero. Hello, strangers of the internet. I'm Laurel, and if you hear some growling in the background, it's because we got a new puppy, and my dog and our puppy are fighting. Don't eat my couch. Gus.
Gus, don't be a rabid porcupine.
I will show you Gus later in the video, so stay tuned to see Gus. But today we are talking about Kayla Malecc. Kayla is a TikToker, and she's been doing her TikToker thing for a very long time. I was introduced to her years ago when she was making the videos about, oh, I did this and my dad's gonna kill me. I thought it was all satire, but later I found out that she does actually have daddy issues. So maybe it wasn't, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Kayla's relationship with Evan Johnson.
The following video contains potential triggers. Viewer discretion is advised.
Kayla met Evan on what she thought would be a one-night stand, kind of get together with her friends. But after a night of deep talking and ending up crying together, much more would arise. After that night, she tells Evan that she wants to see him again. Evan was going to go to trial, and he told her he didn't know if or how much time he would get in jail. So Kayla flew back home, and then a couple days later came back and surprised him, and they spent the whole weekend together. Super fun stuff. They just did a bunch of outdoor stuff at least that's what she described. The sparks, as Kayla put it, were even bigger this time over the weekend. A few hours before his court time, they took a nap together, kind of ending the weekend, and later he was sentenced to 22 days in prison. Evan got out of jail on June 24th, and that same day Kayla flew down, and with his friend, they went to go pick him up from jail. And so that weekend, or that time, it was Kayla, Evan, his friend, and her friend that she was originally with when she met Evan. They started drinking and hanging out. Later that night, they get to the bedroom, and Evan looks at Kayla and just says, "You effed my best friend." Kayla at this point is very confused as Evan is yelling and crying at her, and Kayla was saying how she's never been yelled at or talked to like that in a relationship before. When she thinks back on it, she really regrets ignoring it and letting it roll off her back. Fast forward a few days, they're in California for an influencer party Kayla was invited to, and she brought Evan along as her date. At first, everything was going super well. They were having fun, drinking, laughing, talking to new people, when a random man comes up to Kayla and they start talking about how she and Evan met and how much she likes him. Evan then proceeds to go up to everyone in the party and call Kayla a and a whore, and how she would sleep with anyone at that party. And he went up to her and told her that everyone agreed with him. She started apologizing at this point for talking to that random man, for talking about her boyfriend, Evan, to that random man. And one thing leads to another. That same night, they're by the ocean on a dock, and he pushes her in, jumps in himself. It's a whole thing. That was the first kind of red flag. Now we're gonna get into the first physical altercation. On August 9th, 2024, my wedding day, the first incident of physical abuse came into the relationship. A few days earlier, he had love bombed her by surprising her with a vanity, some treats, her favorite drink at his apartment so she could film her TikToks there, which would have been so sweet and so adorable if it wasn't laced with manipulation. On August 7th, so a few days earlier, right after he gave her the vanity, he asked Kayla to be his girlfriend after an incident where he got drunk, and because Kayla didn't want him to go drink and drive, she said no and stood in front of the car. He held his hand up to threaten to punch her, and she reminisces how it was so terrifying that, oh my gosh, he's actually gonna hit me. But he last minute swerved and hit his windshield and shattered it. He shattered the windshield. There's actually a Snapchat picture of this where they made it look like it was a golf ball because he didn't want people to know that it was actually him. She describes it as a wire in her brain just got snipped. And when they went up to the bedroom that night, Kayla was honestly forever changed. From then on, she was scared of Evan, who then asked her to be his girlfriend. And she said yes because, as she put it, what was I supposed to say? A couple days later on August 9th, so we're going back to August 9th, they went to a bar to hang out. After the bar, she reminisces how she didn't get drunk that night, but he was pretty drunk. That's a consistent theme throughout this video. You'll find that he's very often drunk. They started heading back to his apartment and they got an Uber. When they got in the Uber, he looks at Kayla, calls her and slaps her in the face. She is in shock, so she gets out of the car while it's still moving. She has his phone, she has her phone, she has his phone because apparently when he would get mad, he would post Kayla's a slut on Snapchat, and so she would take his phone. She walks back to the bar and starts crying to security, and she's scared to tell security about what actually happened because she didn't know if Evan would get in trouble. So she starts crying about her daddy daddy issues instead. Then she gets another Uber to start heading back to Evan's apartment, but she ends up getting back out because she's thinking to herself, oh my gosh, what if Evan got out of the cab and is looking for me and he's just wandering the streets looking for me? So she doesn't know anyone in Nashville. So she's in Nashville right now. I should have mentioned that. From August 7th and everything, when she got the vanity, his apartment is in Nashville. So she's there wandering the streets of a place she doesn't know, where she doesn't know anybody, and she stops in a corner and starts crying. Then a group of men walk up to her and ask, are you okay? What's going on? And she tells them everything. They sit with her and console her while she waits for her Uber. The men tell the driver, do not let this girl go back to her boyfriend. He will kill her. She then looks at the Uber driver and says, oh, they're crazy, and tells him to drive. Just drive. When she gets back to the apartment, she sees him throwing up in the bathroom. He looks up at her, and as she notes multiple times through her story, with soulless eyes. And that's one thing she loved about him, was the soul and the fun in his eyes. But his eyes were empty and blank and soulless. And he says, you stupid, where were you? And she responds with, you slapped me in the face. What am I supposed to do? This ends up starting a massive fight, and Evan ends up punching her. Not just one punch, but actively beating her. She has video evidence of teeth indents on her bottom lip from being hit. She said she couldn't eat for 3 days because of the damage to her jaw. She went up to him in the bathroom. You broke my jaw. You broke my jaw. There's video of this. I can't believe it. You broke my jaw. And she just kept saying that over and over again because she was just in so much shock. He then turns to the vanity that they had just built together and punches it and shatters the glass. And this is where she pulls out her phone and starts recording and says, you broke my jaw. You broke my jaw. We're not done. He then shoves her, after she's saying, you know, you broke my jaw, you broke my jaw. He shoves her against the wall where there's blood already and starts beating her into the wall. Once he lets up, she runs outside and calls the domestic abuse hotline because she felt like she had no one to call. She didn't feel like she could tell her mom, her dad, or her friends or anything. And as she's on this call, she's pacing back and forth, and she turns around and sees Evan walking toward her. And so she starts getting a little scared because she is now actively scared of this man. And so she starts walking the other way as a couple cop cars pull up. They were checking on domestic disturbance as someone in the apartment building heard someone screaming. I wonder who that could have been, right? When asked if everything was okay, she lied because she was scared of Evan going back to prison and started talking about her daddy issues as why she was crying. By the way, Evan had taken off running. She said so much how she regrets lying to the police that day because that could have stopped everything there. And she said how she's never felt less human. So there is so much to this story. So I'm going to go through the physical altercation rundown with a couple of the mental abuse rundowns, but there is so much little manipulations that he did. I just am not going to be able to fit it in this video, but I'm just going to go down and tell you all these different stories of things that have happened. The next time of abuse was when they were at a car wash, and it was because Evan had a job where he cleaned driveways, and she said, do you want me to go take your car and give it a car wash while you work? It'll be super, she thought she was being super cute and super nice. And he accused her that she was gonna go cheat while he was working. So that's why he went to the car wash with her, is because like, oh no. He grabbed her hair and smashed her head into the window. He then called her a bitch and a and said, go clean my car. Then laughing with his friend who worked at the car wash as she was on her hands and knees cleaning the car. One time in July, he told her to unalive herself and handed her a bottle of pills. She then pops the cap and puts half in her mouth. She is not serious, by the way. She is not serious. It was kind of a point of like, tell me to and I will, you know, kind of trying to prove a point. And he started freaking out saying, did you actually just do that? He grabs her mouth and she spits them out. He didn't believe that she had spit all of them out. And so he called the cops. And he told her, I want you to go to jail so you know what it's like. When the cops left, because obviously there was nothing wrong, they did some tests or whatever, there's no drugs in your system or whatever. And he said, F bro, I really wish they took you away. They went to vacation on Hawaii. This is still really early in the relationship, like within a month and a half, if I'm remembering correctly. And one night after a man asks for her snap and she says no, she goes and tells him because like, oh, I'm showing him that I don't cheat, you know, I'm being faithful, and it's kind of funny, you know. He goes through her phone and finds very old snap messages with this guy from like 2023, way before she had met him, where they were like linking up or something like that. And of course he's accusing her of cheating, even though the messages say like 2023. And when they get back to their Airbnb, he says that he's ending it and he's leaving her in Hawaii. She starts begging him not to leave her there. And then he punches her head against the door and she almost goes unconscious. And so she kind of slides down to the floor. I believe she was in the bathroom, if I'm remembering correctly, but she's in the fetal position and he starts kicking her over and over and over again. And I don't know if this is the worst part or what, but when he's done kicking her, after smashing her head against the door, he spits on her and leaves. And for the first time, she tries standing up to herself and says, "You don't do that to me. You can't treat me that way." And then he pulls her legs into the hallway where she's grabbing onto a cabinet because she's scared, and he's pulling so hard the cabinet gets ripped off its hinges, and he just starts punching her again. So after that stops, she goes into the shower because she thinks he's not going to come after me in here. I'm safe. And so she's just standing there. She's not cleaning hers over or anything. She's just sitting there standing like this in shock. And while she's in the shower, she hears the door open and Evan takes her clothes. Note this is her only pair of clothes because they're only staying there one night. And he puts them in the parking lot. So she has to walk outside in nothing but a towel to get her clothes. And then he locks the door and keeps her locked out. On that same vacation, there's a second incident of him beating her again. In New York, they were celebrating a photo shoot that Kayla had, and she starts calling out Evan for being in a bad mood, like, "Hey, you're on a free vacation. Why are you in a bad mood? Why are you being so sour? Like, we're celebrating me. Like, come on." And he's just ignoring her and ignores her for hours. And at one point that night, she says she shouldn't have done this, but also that he definitely deserved it. She slaps him in the face. In retaliation, he shoves her down a subway stairway where she misses most of the stairs but hits her tailbone on one of the stairs and slides down the rest. She said she was in so much pain she thought she was paralyzed. She couldn't get up. She was screaming for help. A woman comes up to her aid saying, "What just happened?" Like, she says what just happened, but she did witness it. Evan comes down and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, you okay?" And the woman saying, "Get away from her. I just saw what you did." And so he's running away as the ambulance is called for Kayla. And I believe she still has lasting back damage from that. Oh, this one's bad too. They're all bad. Around October 24th, Kayla and Evan went to one of her friend's birthday parties. And she starts talking to her friend. This is one of her best friends, and he's gay. His name is Brennan. She says that she grabs his face like this to talk into his ear. Kind of when you would just like grab someone's face talking to someone's ear. Very casual. They were at a loud nightclub, by the way. Evan freaks out, says that she wants to F Brennan, the gay man. Like, Brennan's not gay, you want to F him. And he makes Kayla twerk on her gay best friend, making them both very uncomfortable so Evan won't beat Brennan. Then Evan takes them both to a back room where we're not supposed to be. It's kind of like a storage area with a bunch of chairs and stuff, and says to start effing in front of him. And when they're saying, "No, Brennan's gay," like, "No, I'm in a relationship with you," or whatever, stuff that matters, he picks up Brennan and throws him into the chairs and does the same to Kayla. And that same night, Kayla didn't know her roommate was home. Thank goodness for roommates. When she gets in another argument with Evan. She gets under the covers pretending to sleep because you can't argue with someone who's sleeping, right? And so he starts yelling at her, like, "Are you awake now? Are you awake now?" I can't remember exactly what he was yelling, but basically he's yelling at her and climbs on top of her and starts to strangle her. He was staring her in the face as he was strangling her. And Kayla let out one last cry. Didn't think anyone was home, but still tried to do one last scream because she was saying, I can't breathe. Like, she couldn't breathe. And as her vision starts to go blurry, like she thinks she's gonna pass out, she's like, "I'm going to die. This is how I die." Emma, her roommate, walks in and yells for him to get off of her. In November, they went to a house party in LA where Evan eventually got so drunk they had to send him home. And of course, Kayla's gonna go with him. And in the Uber, he tells Kayla he can't breathe. And so the Uber pulls over and she drags him onto the pavement and starts to give him CPR. And there's blood coming out of his mouth and he starts to have a seizure. When the ambulance arrives, he's breathing normally again. He's out of the kind of seizure, blood coming out of his mouth part. And after an hour, if he's checked into the hospital, Kayla gets a call with him being completely fine saying, "Hey, where are you?" He's completely fine. And he's just like, "Hey, where are you?" Yada, yada, yada. And to this day, she has no idea what happened in that hospital to make it go so fast. And he claimed that his stomach was pumped in, but she's skeptical about that. So Kayla literally saved his life that night. And he's coming back to her like nothing happened. He's just kind of like, "So I just had a seizure and almost could have died from alcohol poisoning." So Evan starts verbally abusing her again, as he does often, just usually calling her a slut or a and she says, "You can sleep in my bed, but I'm gonna sleep in the couch. We're not sleeping together tonight." And she lays down on the couch and he screams at her like, "No, you're coming in here," but she won't. And so he climbs up on the couch and starts punching her as hard as he can. And not like more fully cocking his fist back and using his whole body. The only thing that saved her that night was, again, her roommate was home and heard everything and came out and stopped it. Kayla credits her life and her still being alive those 2 nights to Emma walking in. The girls then lock themselves in Emma's room because that was the room that had a lock on it. And they're talking and they're chatting, like kind of going over what just happened. And Evan comes knocking on the door saying, you know, Kayla, come out, yada, yada, yada. And they're saying no. And he punches holes in the doors, in the walls. And it's like they're thick. Kayla has videos showing how thick the doors are. And December 22nd, she was going to Knoxville to stay with his family in a cabin. She went downstairs to look for her charger because her phone was about to die. And the only other person downstairs was his brother. And Evan comes down and starts yelling at her, accusing her of sleeping with his brother. Now we're at the beginning of the end. Her, Emma, Brennan, and her boyfriend all go to Hawaii for the second time on vacation. They were taking mopeds around, and so they went to a gas station to go fill up. Brennan and Emma go inside the gas station, and Kayla and Evan are filling up the mopeds. And so Kayla's asking him what's wrong because he's sulking again. And he says she was I-effing Brennan. And she's like, what is that? What? Also, what? He's gay. If she didn't admit that she wanted to sleep with Brennan, he would walk inside the gas station and beat him up. And so she said it, and he says nothing and heads towards the gas station and shoulder checks Brennan on his way in. So they go cliff jumping at a spot in Honolulu, and she wants to take a video of her and Emma jumping because she's a TikToker. She's obviously going to take a lot of videos, right? She goes to ask Evan if he's going to jump off, and he says yeah. So she says, oh, because he can't take the video. And because of that one oh, for 5 straight minutes in public, there's a bunch of people around, and this is not a private place. He yells at her, calling her fat, ugly, anything you can think of. And people start looking over and, of course, noticing. A bit later, Brennan had left for his own safety because he could kind of tell there was something off. And Evan went to go buy some twisted teas off some girls. And one thing led to another. He's drunk again, and he tries to fight some random guys. Kayla looks over and there's a bunch of guys ganging up on him and telling him to sit down, you're drunk, yada yada, and eventually tell her, you gotta get him out of here. Her saving grace, a man came up to her and said, I don't want him driving drunk on that moped. I can take you guys to get some pizza and help sober up, and then you can drive the rest away back to your Airbnb. And Kayla's like, yes, that would be so great. Thank you. And so the guy leaves to go get his truck, or just leaves. And then Evan asks to go through her phone, and she's just like, okay, here's my phone. And after 5 seconds, hands it back. And then like a minute later, asks for it again. And Kayla's like, no, you just had it. She's getting fed up with him. Evan then grabs her wrist and pins her up against a brick wall and starts yelling at her. So she's pinned up against this wall, she's being yelled at. And the man comes back up with Emma, the roommate, and they say, don't touch her like that. Evan yells back, mind your business. And when they don't back down, he starts to try to fight the man. Kayla panics because she has no idea what to do, and she finally runs away. And she calls her mom. She made a deal with herself that if she were to tell her family, there's no going back. And she kept that promise. She told her mom everything. Eventually, Emma and the man catch up to her and find her, and she tells them everything. They then go to get some pizza to console her because she's sobbing. So she's in the back of the car sobbing. But they get a call. Brennan broke down. His moped broke down about 30 minutes out. So they're going to go pick him up first. So they go to pick him up. Evan has her location. So he follows them and pulls up beside them and knocks on the window and says, you know, why the F are you crying? And the man comes up, shoves him, and says, we know what you did. And Evan, yells, we are over. And I'm going back to Nashville, and speeds off. There's a lot that kind of goes on, but eventually Evan goes back to Airbnb because when Kayla got there, all his stuff was gone, but he came back and they talked and talked and talked. But the next day, so I'm just going to fast forward through that because that's just frustrating. The next day, Evan made Kayla call her mother, and he coached her on what to say. So she would call and say, mute, and then he would tell her everything's fine. Everything's fine. And then tell her it only happened once. It only happened once. And then eventually Kayla's not going to lie to her mom. So she says, he does it a lot. He does it a lot. He does it a lot. And she says, you need to leave him, and she hangs up. And so Kayla gives him 2 months to change. And Kayla officially breaks it off during that 2-month break because she met a woman who was going through the same things as her, and she had never met anyone in person going through the same things as her, and showed her the videos and pictures, same stuff she had. And Kayla asked how long had it been going on? And the woman said 4 years. And at that moment, Kayla realized that Evan will never change, and he will never stop until he kills her. And one part of the story that's important to note, he was only concerned about his social media presence. Like, that's the only time he showed emotion was when his social media would be in jeopardy. He used her for clout. When she broke up with him, the only thing he asked is, are you going to post this? And she said, I don't know. She was scared to tell her story, but she went on live and did end up saying they broke up. And then in April, she posted a 2-part series called He Doesn't Love You, which is a very emotional and heartbreaking couple videos to watch. It's actually very hard to watch. That's actually where I got all of my information, though, was straight from those videos. So straight from her. You can go watch them. I recommend putting it on 1.5 speed. You can tell she's having a bunch of flashbacks during it. She has a bunch of the trauma pauses. So on April 7th, 2025, Evan is arrested in Summer County, Tennessee, on charges of domestic assault and violating probation. Kayla is constantly updating everyone on her TikTok. So everyone's really invested in this, and they constantly on social media, people are saying, I can't believe we didn't see this, because in her videos, she would wear open-chested things and you could see the bruises. You can see the bruises from when he choked her. It's crazy, because throughout this whole relationship, she's still posting TikToks while she's bruised and while she has goose eggs on her head. So they go to court, and on May 7th, 2025, Evan Johnson pleads guilty to domestic assault and a DUI-related probation violation. He is sentenced to 18 months in prison and ordered to have no contact with Kayla, and prohibited to use any social media platforms under his name, which I don't think that's enough. I couldn't imagine him getting out of jail and then getting in a relationship or whatever and seeing him happy. Like, imagining her having to see him happy after what he did to her, only after 18 months. Because it's easy to say abusers shouldn't be able to be happy, but it's just not the way the world turns. Kayla is incredibly brave to tell her story about this. And I wanted to talk about this because so many people are very focused on the James Charles aspect of it. There's a lot of drama between that. And, maybe I'll make a video about it too. But as of right now, I think it's so important to talk about what Kayla wanted from this. Psychologists say that it takes women on average 7 times to officially leave a relationship. So they'll come back to their abuser 7 times before they leave. On average. There's of course more to the story, like what James Charles did. But again, we can go over that in the second part if you're interested, and I think it's a very interesting thing, but James Charles is just going to get in another thing and another thing in the future. But this video is dedicated to the mission she's on. In her videos, she spent a good 30 minutes talking about how this is not just her story, this is yours. And if you're in a relationship like this, there's hope. Here's the domestic abuse hotline. Call the domestic abuse hotline. Make your first action. We need to stop focusing on James Charles being James Charles, because he's just gonna get in more drama. And we need to focus on the real issue at hand. Yes, what he did was very, very, very crappy, but a woman almost died. And people are sitting there talking about some makeup influencer instead of a woman who survived and told her story and won her story. She won the case. That's not a story for a lot of women. So tell your story. End that chapter of your story so you can start a better one. As promised, before I finish the video, I'm gonna show you my new puppy. Come here, buddy. Oh, I'm so tired. He was sweeping. This is Gus.
Gus, don't be a crazy hooligan.
He is a mini Aussie Doodle, and he is a cuddle bug, and he is wonderful, and he has bad breath. I want to thank you all for watching this video if you made it to the end. Thank you for sticking with me. This is longer than my normal videos, but I am so excited to see the growth that I have. I cannot believe at the time I'm recording this, I have hit 2,000 subscribers. I am shocked, and I'm so grateful. And if you're not subscribed, subscribe, join the party. We're having a lot of fun over here. And if you like this style of content, let me know, because I really enjoyed doing the research for this. So if you're liking more of this true crime stuff, suggest some cases I should go through, or suggest maybe stay away from this and maybe stick with just some pop culture stuff. Anyway, if you like this video, there's a playlist right here to click on and to go see some more videos. This was the dog that was eating my couch. And here is the OG puppy before your next video. Say bye-bye, lady. Say bye-bye. She got a haircut. Oh, Gus wants to come up too. You're so cute. I love you.